Broadcasting live from the Business Radio X studios in Atlanta, Georgia, it's time for Atlanta Business Radio. Brought to you by OnPay, Atlanta's new standard in payroll. To learn more and get your first month free, go to onpay.com. Now, here's your host.
Lee Cantor here, another episode of Atlanta Business Radio, and this is going to be a fun one. I got with me today Steve Bachman with High Tech Partners. Welcome, Steve.
Hello, Lee. How are you?
I am doing great. How are things at High Tech Partners?
Every day is always interesting. I got to say, notwithstanding all the daily and personal challenges, the last month has been absolutely great because we spend most of our time working in times of discontinuous change or problems related to discontinuous change. And boy, this is a time of discontinuous change.
Right. So your work is tailor-made for this environment, right?
I think our experience is tailor-made for this environment, having seen a lot of things in other times and in normal courses of business that sometimes aren't as normal as one thinks. Yes, we're very excited, very busy.
Now, for those who aren't familiar with High Tech Partners, can you share a little bit about who you serve and how you do it?
Absolutely. We're a partnership of 6 former CEOs of tech, biotech, or health tech companies. So we bring a lot of the senior leadership experience and we deliver it in the form of advising, consulting, and mentoring from everything from early stage companies to larger companies that are going through those periods of significant or broad change.
And then, like, when you begin kind of working with a company, you probably kind of say, okay, this is what success, this is how we're going to measure success, right? And then when something like this that's upon us right now, some big disruption, how do you go back and kind of maybe change the metrics of success?
I think it's a great question and a great place to start. Is the first thing you need to do is you really need to take a moment and reset the bar. And we actually spend a lot of times trying to work with the organization, the leadership in those organizations. And the first thing you got to do is you got to get them to recognize that you got to sometimes throw out the old goals and objectives. If you're in transportation today, somehow what you set out to do January 1 is probably not going to, be a realistic set of goals, for example. So that's really where we start with is getting a diagnostic of where you are, the business. And then 2 is what should potentially be a new set of goals and objectives is a lot of the initial conversation.
Now you're kind of bringing fresh eyes and a bunch of experience into the equation. So are people open to this kind of conversation, or are you finding some people are like, look, this is too crazy now. I'm just going to wait this out and then I'm going to, pop my head out of my shell in 90 days and then see what's what? Or are you finding that people are like, hey, you know what? We got to do something. Even if it's not exactly what we do, we want to be seen as a good corporate citizen. We want to be helpful. Like, what are the conversations you're having now?
The good news is, I think because of our current situation, lots of folks are a heck of a lot more willing and understanding to jump in to do a new reset, and a lot easier. If things are going well, let's say Q4 of last year, and one's asking the questions, we've made our pitch, we got our buy-in from our investors, we got a buy-in from the board, I got a buy-in from the management team. Should we be doing better? In normal times, sometimes that's a harder conversation. When one is thrown the big curveball we've been all thrown, sometimes earlier this year, it's actually an easier conversation to have that says, yes, we need to do that reset. And then the question turns into, let's figure out what that reset might be, and then who are the stakeholders we need to get involved to communicate that with. Is it the board? Is it if you're a public company, do you need to basically announce that you're probably not going to make your earnings call? Very different, but it's really the same.
Now, when you're working with clients, are your clients typically the business owners and those stakeholders, or are they sometimes the salespeople? We
typically are working with somebody within the C-suite. It could be the CEO, could be a chief technology officer, could be your VP of sales and marketing, whatever those titles might be. But we're typically working within the C-suite, working on strategies, and then trying to translate with the executive teams how those strategies translate into tactics.
And so you're giving them the resources and tools to help them kind of manage more successfully?
I think what we're giving them is we're giving them an experienced sounding board against which they can have some of the hard conversations they want to have with people that are outside the organization who can challenge things that sometimes are sacrosanct within an organization, right?
Right. Now, when you're having
I'm sorry. Sometimes it's hard to have the conversation if you're having it with a CEO. Does a CEO want to pick up, call the chairman of the board or his investor and say, hey, I was thinking about this or this or this or this. What do you think? Sometimes it's easier to come to us, have those conversations, get a chance to play through the thought process, get a chance to be challenged in a similar kind of way and in a similar kind of role. And then the next set of conversations you have, should you have them with your leadership in that manner, or your directors or your, investors, it's a much more thought out conversation.
Right, because you're kind of giving them that tough love they need before they go in front of the board.
And we're also good. We also give them practice.
Right.
We're a safe conversation, because at the end of the day, if you tell me something that that your chairman of the board or your investor may not like, we're in effect your customer. We have no oversight into what you're doing, your business, and what changes may need to make, or should someone make a decision like the Navy did on that Navy captain to replace the leader of the ship.
Right. Now, a lot of your background's been in sales. What do you see as the biggest breakdown in the sales process for most organizations?
I see that's a great question. I think really the biggest breakdown I see time and time again is the consistency of lack of tactical execution against a strategic plan.
So and
lack of feedback on where things are breaking down.
So it's not anything kind of earth-shattering. It's just kind of the basic blocking and tackling. Like once a strategy's kind of been decided, it's just the kind of the day-to-day execution and the grind. Assuming the strategy is right, it becomes an execution and a grind. We all want to believe that selling is easy and it's repetitive, but there's so many nuances, there's so many challenges, and it requires a tremendous amount of discipline. And I'm not sure if anybody in your listenership would equate discipline and sales, right? Right. So
we see more of a breakdown on the tactical side than we do on the strategic. If it's not working, and it's not working for anybody, you very often you need to change your strategy, but you also need to give things time to work, right?
Right. So sometimes they'll kind of be impatient, or they'll think success will happen much faster than maybe they anticipate?
I see that all too often. I see that more often with technical founders. You can have a conversation where it says, a typical sales cycle is 9 to 12 months or 9 to 15 months. You bring a salesperson in, starts with a cold lead and doesn't understand why you don't have a deal in 6. You snicker and you laugh. We see it all the time.
Right. So when they're talking about it and they have it on the whiteboard, 9 to 12 months is different than when they need the money. So when they need the money, that kind of accelerates it.
When you need the deal, you're exactly right. By the way, sometimes you can influence a sale. Try to move it up, cut a deal, reduce price, increase services. Sometimes you can't.
Right. I mean, especially in those kind of deals where they're complex and they require a lot of people to sign off on something, and there's politics, there's all kinds of saboteurs in the process that you got to navigate.
Absolutely. And by one approach is to change your tactics. And, if you think about it, you're trying to sell an entire organization that you said it has a lot of signatories, has a lot of buy-ins needed. Maybe an approach is you take it smaller. And you try to develop a beachhead, get into a smaller group that maybe has a bigger set of pains, and then go in that way. Those are some of the tactics one needs to look at. And sometimes you can move the needle, sometimes you just can't.
Right. So now, when you're in a kind of a crisis mode that we're in now for some organizations, and some people have to kind of rethink entire business models, really. Like if you look at the restaurant industries, they're going for like a fine dining restaurant where the ambiance and environment was the whole selling point, and that's now out the window, and now they're selling takeout, in meal kits. Like, how do you have those kind of conversations? Can you really help them kind of rethink what their superpowers are and how best to deliver something just to kind of get through this crisis?
I think, yes, you can. And if you think about it, is the conversations, you can eliminate a quarter, half, 3/4 of the conversations because of all the things a fine dining restaurant can't do today, right?
Right.
Can't bring people in. You can't do a bunch of other things. So the trick is, how do you sit down and say, all right, what is the hand, what is the hand of cards you were played? And now let's get down to this detailed conversation that says, you can't bring in people in, they must come out. You must have it in a format that you can deliver it and drop it in the trunk of their car. All right. So now what do we do that we can be unique and different so we don't look like the same, $4 hamburger or $8 cheeseburger? How do we bring and how do we communicate, and then how do we deliver on that message so you get people to engage you and come back? And sometimes it's just sales. Sometimes it's a combination of sales and marketing. I've seen more people quickly revise websites for businesses that might not have revised websites for years, because you need to be able to talk and communicate, or at least get the home page up that says, yes, we're doing delivery and takeout.
Right. I mean, sometimes that's just a sign is enough, to let people know you're still in business.
Exactly. And the good news is I think the city leaders are really doing a good job in trying to help the businesses. I know in Sandy Springs, where I live, City Sandy Springs is recommending local restaurants that are doing takeout and trying to communicate that. To put a sign up out in front or to put something on a window is probably a lot more forgiving than it was in the old days.
Right.
I think everybody in situations like this, I think everybody understands the, severity of the crisis we're in now. And, the goal is to get back healthy. So, sometimes, we need to offer a little flexibility, right?
Right. Now, in your career, you've you found it to be very important to give back in terms of mentoring, advising, being active in a lot of different organizations like Atlanta Innovation Forum and the Executive Sales and Marketing Association, things like that. That kind of investment in your the people who serve you, I'm sure, has paid off for you. But do you have any advice for young people about the importance of joining organizations and spending some time either being a mentee or a mentor? If they're young, even at a young age, they can still be mentoring somebody about something.
Absolutely. But I've always viewed volunteership and stewardship as, an important part of two things. It goes back and it builds the industry you're in, because typically you're doing it within whatever your sandbox may be. If it's development, if it's marketing, if it's restaurant, ownership. And so, number one is the bigger your sandbox you're playing in, the bigger the business opportunities are. Number one. Number two is, from a career development perspective, one can't expect one's organization to provide you all the inputs you need to face all the challenges you may face in the future. And, I'll use Atlanta Innovation Forum, given an opportunity to provide a leadership role in, our Women Driving Innovation group, where in effect you're running a division of a business with P&L responsibilities before you may have P&L responsibilities at a business you're in. There's enough correlated learnings that you're going to come out the other end better. And, you'll wake up someday and something will be easier and you'll not be able to attribute it to it. Or you may be able to figure out that you did something and you did. You can attribute to it, number one. Number two is, I also find it a great place for business development. It's really hard knocking on doors and asking people for their time with an expectation of money. But it's a heck of a lot easier to getting to know a group of other people that may be outside your regular sandbox. And someday, through building a relationship, a service, you get a call and somebody says, hey, I'm looking to do this and that. Do you know anybody that can help? And if you can help, you can raise your hand. And a lot of our business at High Tech is referral-based business. It's a heck of a lot easier than doing it the other way.
Right. It's one of those things where when you're volunteering or taking a leadership role, then you're demonstrating that you're trustworthy, that you show up, you're reliable, all those attributes that they're looking for when it comes time to hire. So it is, you're doing business development even if you don't think you are, because you're demonstrating, kind of your skill and the qualities of your character.
Right. Absolutely. And by the way, and people like to do business with people they know better than people they don't know, because it's just an inherent less risk. Even if you don't necessarily know the business they're doing, by doing it with people you do know, the people you can count on, the people you can't count on. And at the end of the day is, if you help somebody else in an organization, accomplish something or meet a deadline or get them out of a problem, there's a thank you, but there's also, you've increased that chance that if there's a business opportunity, why wouldn't that person behave the same way?
Right. Well, Steve, that was really great advice, and thank you so much for sharing that wisdom. If somebody wants to learn more about High Tech Partners, can you please share the website?
Sure. www.hitechpartners.com.
Good stuff. Thank you again. Thank you again, Steve, for sharing your story today. That was Steve Bachman with High Tech Partners, HITECH partners.com. This is Lee Cantor. We will see you all next time on Atlanta Business Radio.
Today's episode of Atlanta Business Radio is brought to you by OnPay, Atlanta's new standard in payroll. To learn more and get your first month free, go to onpay.com.